Let me bring in my think tank tonight, criminal defense attorneys, Michael Bixon, Kira Lynn Abernathy, and Addison Wade. Great to have you all here. Thank you. This is a death penalty case. Jury selection a little bit different here than your run-of-the-mill case. Not that any of our cases are run-of-the-mill, but a case where the judge will sentence. Here, the jury is going to make some recommendation on all of that. And you've got to ask them about the death penalty. What does that do overall to the trial as a whole? The fact that this is a death penalty case versus a straight murder trial.
I think you just have to be a lot more careful, right? When you're doing the judge, the prosecutor, the defense, every part of that legal team, because when you're choosing a jury, and some judges sort of like to push the process along because it can get tedious, it can get drawn out. But when you're talking about a person's life, you cannot be careful enough. You know, I honestly think that the longer they take on this process, the better. And for both sides, because you want to make sure that you have a fair and impartial jury who's actually going to make the right call when it comes time.
Yeah, and you know, from a prosecution perspective, I think it's almost more difficult because you're trying to find people who, at the moment you ask them to give the ultimate penalty, they would do it if they're convinced, like they're willing to go there.
Right. There's a difference between being okay with doing it and being like, yeah, you convince us, we're going to do it, done, death penalty. If we get to that point, if he's found guilty, we find him guilty, yes, we're okay with it. Versus like, oh, I'm okay with it, versus no, we're going to do it.
And I want to play one of the potential jurors here because this is a case involving a son accused of killing his parents. Take a listen to what this prospective juror had to say.
Can you tell me what you think would be the circumstances or the reasons why the death penalty should be imposed in any particular
case?
Well, I
just struggle. I think, is it harder to live your life in prison, or is it easier to just be gone? So I do struggle with the two of them. I don't know which is worse.
Right, but can you give me an example? Examples of the type of murder that you think...
Like if you killed your parents. I've got kids. I hope that never happens to me.
Wow. Addison, how about that? The fact that this juror said, hey, when do you think it's appropriate? Oh, if you kill your parents. That's what this case is. Is that a good juror?
Probably want to strike that juror. If she's
well, the defense would want to strike it, but do you think you even get to that point? Do you think that juror would get dismissed by the judge? Or do you think?
I do. I think that Michael's correct. I mean, the two things you need to find out first is, one, can a juror be fair and impartial? And two, of course, can they keep an open mind and listen to the evidence? The death penalty case, you're actually asking people what they think about the possibility of recommending putting someone to death. And that's why they're being so meticulous and going through it so carefully, because this is a different animal. This is a different kind of case. If it takes 2 weeks, it takes 2 weeks. It takes 3 weeks, it takes 3 weeks. And I think that the judge will go through and strike jurors for cause, and some will have philosophical differences or objections to the death penalty, some will have religious objections to the death penalty.
One of the things that we've been hearing a lot about are people who want, you know, when would you be willing to do it? They talk about serial killers, they talk about mass murders. Is this a mass murder? Do you think in the eyes of the jury this would be considered a mass murder? You're talking about 3 people shot execution style. They're all in the same family, in the same house. Alleged, you know, they say the son did it here, but do you think jurors would view that as a mass murder?
I don't think so. I think more of a mass murder, you're thinking of someone going and shooting up a mall. Someone going and targeting specific people over time and killing, you know, those kind of people. I feel like that's more what they'd be getting at, but I don't know. I don't know what they would think would be a mass murder or not.
I mean, I'd probably agree. I mean, we see these horrible scenarios like what happens out in Vegas or something like that, or, you know, the nightclub shooting down in Florida. I think that's more in line of what they're thinking of when they think of a mass murder. I'm not to say this isn't a horrific crime and absolutely terrible, but I don't think it's going to sort of get to that level.
All right, we've got a lot more to talk about. Jury selection continuing. Grant Amato, surviving brother, in the courtroom today.
Can you give me an example of when something occurred in the news that kind of prompted a discussion about the death penalty?
Was, I believe, the Zimmerman case was, I don't remember if they were seeking it or not, but...
Okay.
Like a Ted Bundy type of case? So like,
serial killer?
Mm-hmm.
I think, isn't Ted Bundy
he is
right now? Did you watch that one? kind of, a little bit. I didn't get like fully involved into it.
Are you familiar with that?
A little bit, yeah.
Would you kill him?
Based off of what I watched, he probably
We have
deserved
like a
to
scenario
die.
where you were asked a scenario where you would get the death penalty. That might be one of them.
Yes.
Something like maybe the Jeffrey Dahmer case, where you have a serial killer that explicitly goes out there and murders people for pleasure, joy, whatever it may be.
Like Casey Anthony or O.J. Simpson, things like that, you know, really high-profile cases that were on TV and that everyone was talking about at the time.
All right, that's jury selection highlights, and we're talking about, oh, Casey Anthony, O.J. Simpson, Jeffrey Dahmer, Ted Bundy. Yikes. All right, let me bring back in my think tank. Who does this help more if we've got jury selection for Grand Amato and there's a discussion of Dahmer, Casey Anthony, George Zimmerman, and Ted Bundy, and O.J. Simpson? Who's this helping?
Frankly, when I was watching those clips, I mean, Ted Bundy, I believe, was executed in Florida. It was a Florida case.
Yes.
I think that it's an interesting way to delve into what they feel about the death penalty, but that's the ultimate question. I mean, we can talk about Casey Anthony and O.J. Simpson all day, but you're on the hook here. What do you think? I mean, as horrible as this crime is, and I think going back to mass murder, I think it's reaching that level because I think a lot of jurors are going to think about this was this dude's parents and his brother. That's an emotional reaction that a lot of jurors think. So I just think that both lawyers need to tone in on what the individual thinks about the death penalty.
Yeah, and how about this talk of these high-profile, notorious people? Now, they mentioned two people who were found not guilty in Central Florida. One of them in that same courtroom, that was George Zimmerman. Casey Anthony, 20 miles south of there, and O.J. Simpson was not guilty during at least one of his trials. Does that help the defense in any strange way that you're talking about all these notorious people?
It could, because they could see the evidence, they could be thinking about all these high-profile cases. If we even get to opening statements on Monday, it may take a little bit longer than that, but let's say they're still thinking about this and they think, okay, well maybe it's not that bad. I remember saying death penalty for these people, but it's not that bad. Or they could go like Addison said and go, no, that's pretty bad. That's your family. That's the people that raised you and you grew up with in their own home, all at one time.
What do you think? I mean, would you be comfortable during jury selection and you're picking a jury and there's a discussion of Ted Bundy and Jeffrey Dahmer?
If I'm the defense attorney, by all means. And to be honest with you, yeah.
Why is that?
If you think about it, there's such more, it's hard to actually put into words to qualify it, but they're worse cases, right? I mean,
right, if you had a depravity scale,
yeah, I mean,
they're
so
way over
far,
here, right?
Yeah, I mean, and don't get me wrong, you know, 3 people, his family, this is like horrendous, right? But compared to something like that, all of a sudden, it's almost like you're mitigating it. You're taking a step back and you're saying, is this as bad as that comparatively? And the answer is no, at least I don't think so. But when you compare it to somebody like Casey Anthony or OJ, yeah, now all of a sudden on that same scale, he looks much worse. So I think it depends on who we're talking about on that scale.
Now, I want to talk about Jason Amato. He was inside the courtroom. This is the brother. And he's there for jury selection. He's on the witness list. He got special permission to be in there for jury selection. Do you think ultimately that will have any impact on the jury? The fact that he's there, and it's not clear why he's there. I mean, in the interrogation room when he's speaking with his brother, it seems like he believes his brother's responsible, but he also says he loves his brother. What do you think, if any impact that may have, the fact that Jason Amato, the oldest brother of the family, the only other surviving member, is going to be in that courtroom day in and day out?
I think it depends on whether or not the jury, 1, recognizes who that is, and 2, remembers that he's been there throughout the whole trial. Because right now, whether or not they know who he is, it's, you know, I doubt it.
They will, because he's on the witness list.
Oh, well, yeah, but as the trial goes on, especially as they see that video, that's going to make a difference, because there's only one way to look at that video, and there's only one way to actually interpret it. He thinks he's guilty, right? He's coming in, and the way that he's interviewing him it's not in a friendly manner. He clearly thinks he did it. And if his own brother thinks he did it, that's definitely not going to help his case. And they're going to know why he's sitting there from day one. It's because he thinks that he did it.
Agree?
I do. It's another strange twist in an already crazy case. I can't imagine what he's thinking and going through right now.
No, I mean, everyone is thinking about Jason, you know, and we talk about this case, what an impossible position he's been placed in, losing his family and now his brother. Remember, this is a death penalty case. So if prosecutors are successful all the way, the last surviving member of his family, other than himself, will be on death row.
It's awful. It's awful, any way you look at it. I mean, he is caught between grieving for his parents and his other brother, and he may believe that Grant did it, but no one can know for sure right now until the evidence unfolds. So he's caught in a very strange place, and you can see the anguish on his face as you're playing the clips of him in the gallery. It's just awful. It's another strange twist to a case like this.
Yeah, if we can, I want to take a listen to a little piece of that back and forth interrogation. And again, folks, this is at police headquarters. It's in the interrogation room, so they've got the video cameras and they've got the microphones there. And police leave, and then Grant Amato's brother comes in. Now, whether or not they know they're being recorded, I have no idea, but they are. Here's a piece of it.
I'm sorry. I don't believe you. And I probably will have resentment for the rest of my life, whether you did it or you didn't do it, but I need closure. I need to know what happened to my mother, my father, and my brother Cody. Because I wasn't there to help. And that hurts me. That hurts me a lot, man. I may not have been able to stop you. You probably may have hurt me too. But at least I would have known what happened. And I'm in who knows what now. I'm lost. And it scares me that you want to leave here and not face what happened. Because you're putting my life at risk then. You're putting Donna's life at risk, Grandma's life. How do we know what you're going to do?
That is so heartbreaking. He just he says it, I'm lost, I'm looking for an answer. And I think that may ultimately be why he wants to be in the courtroom for every moment of this case. And as a victim, he's entitled to it, and the judge has allowed it.
Yeah, that's what I've thought. That's why, because at first when I saw him, I thought that's strange that he's there. But then I watched that interview when you guys had played it back earlier today, and I was like, no, that's why he's there. He is lost. He doesn't know. He needs some sort of closure. He can't get it. So there's two choices. He can run away from everything and just put blinders on and see what the outcome is later, or he can do exactly what he's doing. No, I want to be there for jury selection, even though that's not normal. I want to be there every moment of the way because it's my right to be there, and I need to see it. I need to know. Because it doesn't sound like he's convinced that his brother knows what happens, it sounds like. But I'm not sure he's convinced that his brother did it, but he doesn't think it's out of the realm of possibility.
And that's got to be the most difficult leap to make. And there was a case I covered years ago involving a rabbi from New Jersey. Fred Newlander was his name. And he was accused of hiring a hitman to murder his wife in their house. Well, his son was living at home at the time, and his son was actually one of the EMTs who was responding to the scene of the death, which is another whole story. But there were two trials because there was a hung jury during the first trial, and he testified in the first trial and watched the rest of the trial, you know, inside the courtroom as a victim. And at the end of the trial, he was convinced that his father had done it at the end of the first one. And when he testified at the second one, he testified much differently. But he must have been in a very similar position of not knowing for sure what happened, but then he heard his father lie on the witness stand, and he knew, and he put the pieces together and was convinced. And I guess that's something that victims sometimes need. They need to know what happened. And I always say this, a trial's a search for the truth, to find out what happened. And that's what this trial's going to be about, ultimately.
Right, and frankly, if I'm on the prosecution team, I play that interview over and over again in close, and I just say, focus on Grant's reaction or emotion, or I'm sorry, lack thereof, because I know if
that's
I'm
a big part of this is his lack of reaction to anything, whether it's to police or anyone else. That it's like, hey, I didn't do it, or what am I being arrested for? Or why are you all here? Or
yeah, he sits there like a statue as his brother's sort of interrogating him about whether or not he killed his family. And I can't imagine a less emotional topic. He just like a statue, a stone statue, just sitting there, and it's crazy. And what I want to know is, how's his brother going to testify later on, if he does get convicted at the death penalty stage, whether or not he's actually for or against it. And I'm wondering whether or not he's sitting there because now that he realizes his brother is up for the death penalty, whether or not he's actually going to support him and how he's going to testify about what he was talking about during that video.
Yeah, I mean, it's heartbreaking all along for Jason Amato, and obviously this trial is more important to him than anyone else. It's his family that is gone. We're going to continue our conversation, and we're going to show you some really revealing video. It's Grant Amato again, but he's not in there with his brother. He's in there with police. The interrogation of Grant Amato next.
Cooperative, sir. We appreciate that. Some Seminole County detectives want to talk to you, so we're going to get the handcuffs off of you.
Nothing in your pants, correct? Yes.
Nothing, yes, sir.
They did? It's just a normal routine when we encounter someone that we want to make sure you're safe. Now we know you don't have any weapons. We'll get those restraints off of you.
I mean, I have my like duffel bag and whatnot in there if you guys want to check that and whatnot.
That'll be up to the detectives that talk to you.
You know, I've watched this video a few times of him being taken down at the hotel, and one thing that was sort of missing that I didn't catch, and maybe I just missed it, and maybe I didn't hear it correctly, but I didn't hear him saying like, hey, why are you guys here? Why are there like, 15 police officers here? Why are you putting handcuffs on me? I didn't hear any of that. I mean, if I'm at a hotel and someone knocks on the door and there's police and they take me into custody, I might ask them why. And again, I may have missed it because some of the audio was difficult to hear, but it wasn't clear to me, and he's very cooperative, which is good. We want him to be cooperative. We don't want a scene there. But, your reaction to a situation like that, if you've, haven't done anything and you don't think you've done anything and you wouldn't be necessarily expecting the police to be knocking on your door is like, why are you guys arresting me? I don't know. Am I crazy? Am I crazy? Is that evidence of anything?
I mean, it doesn't look good at all for him, especially when he says, oh, and if you want to check my duffel bag, you can check that too. Why? You didn't even ask why they were there. What are they checking your duffel bag for?
Yeah.
To be fair, I mean,
because the gun's not, you won't find the gun in the duffel bag, so it's not there, but you can go check it if you want.
Yeah, but look, people react in a stressful situation. There's a million different ways. Some people are super compliant. Some people are going to lash out, Some people are going to act crazy. I mean, is there a normal way to react to getting arrested?
No.
I don't think there ever could
Probably isn't, but I think a defense attorney is going to have to explain that to the jury because that's not how we necessarily would expect someone to react, right?
Yeah, you don't need to be F. Lee Bailey or a 50-year lawyer to recognize that there are certain natural ways that most people react, similar to how he was talking to his brother in the interrogation room. And your point was spot on. I mean, all right, guys, why are you here? Why are you putting me in cuffs? Why am I being laid out? I mean, natural questions that people will ask, even people who committed the crime, and that's what makes this guy.
He doesn't even blurt out like, "Oh, I paid that parking ticket" or anything like that. All right, let's get to the interrogation now. And first part of this interrogation I'm going to show you is a discussion where Grant Amato's talking about his family and his role in that family.
Were you the baby? You were truly the family baby?
For my mom.
What about the Chiefs?
Yeah.
Okay.
For my mom.
Mom's favorite?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I mean, I had been being told that, because, again, it's like this last 6 or 7 months was just like stressful for everybody.
Sure.
And, countless times my dad would like come up to me and he'd make like me feel, like he'd try and use things and word things to make me feel guilty so that I would do everything that I can, like get a job.
Almost like a motivation.
Right. And he'd tell me time and time again that, you're her favorite. I mean, she would do anything for you.
Mm-hmm.
And, I mean, it's like, yeah, I don't need to hear that. I mean, that's not what would motivate me.
Sure.
But no, with Mom, I think we yelled at each other a grand total of like 3 or 4 times my whole life. I've never, like, yelled at her for anything, because, I mean, she's never done anything wrong.
Okay, and I said this before. I want your reaction to this. I understand police rapport and getting as much information as they can. The more he talks, the better it is, right? That's the way it works. It doesn't have to be confrontational the whole time. Create some rapport and everything. But the fact that he's sitting there and kind of talking about his life, and this is something I've noticed with many criminal defendants, is that I think they believe, like, if I just can calm and kind of talk to them, that it will make them seem like I'm innocent. Whereas me, I'm thinking, why are you not saying something about why am I here again? Or if they told him that his parents are dead, my parents are dead, what happened? And asking questions. But instead, he's going through this whole thing about video games and what games he likes to play and trips to Japan. He loves anime, and now he's talking about how he's the baby of the family and mom loves him, and never yell with mom.
Everyone in America has a Fifth Amendment right to remain silent, and more people should use it, especially people who are accused of killing their family. And I have never seen a case or a situation where anything beneficial has come about from a criminal defendant voluntarily speaking to authorities, either before arrest, pre-investigation, or after arrest. And again, the prosecution will just keep playing this over and over again.
And I can understand if it was if he's being investigated for the murder of a stranger, someone he doesn't have any connection to, so he's not going to feel it. But his family's dead, and it's one of two things: either they didn't tell him yet, so he's not going to reveal that he knows. So why are we having this conversation about my family? Why are we talking about anime? Why are we, you know? But if he was told his family's dead at this point, why is he like very matter-of-factly kind of talking about his relationship with his mom? Does he think that's going to make him look innocent?
I mean, look, you can only guess. And for his sake, I hope that they haven't already told him that his family had been murdered. Because if they had, that interview looks terrible, right? I mean, if I was a prosecutor, I'd put that on repeat throughout the trial. It looks so good for them. If he doesn't know, yeah, of course he should be asking questions about why you keep talking about my family, what's going on. You know, again, people react differently in different situations. I certainly don't think he might be the sharpest tool in the shed. So it might not be a reasonable reaction. It might not be how I would react. But I don't think it necessarily means that he's more guilty. Now, again, if he already knows that they've been murdered and they're talking about it, that's a whole different story. And all of a sudden now that looks awful.
Yeah. Now, they were talking about his mom, now also talking about his father. Now, again, I believe investigators are doing a great job here and getting the defendant to talk. I just don't understand why he's talking the way he's talking. Let's take a look.
Dad ever abuse you?
When we were younger.
How so?
Spankings with like a 2x4, and then, you know, he'd use like, I mean, it was like a 2x4 that was fashioned into a paddle called the lightning rod, I think is what it was called. No, he broke it on me.
I'd be sorry, I would probably take it to my dad, take it out and burn it.
Yeah.
So he didn't have it anymore.
But, yeah, he would, you know, he'd do that, and then he'd push you around. Like, he wouldn't punch you. He wouldn't bruise you.
Slap you?
He never slapped me, but I guess I should say the only place that I ever got bruised was on my butt from being spanked.
Belittle you?
He would belittle me when I was younger, but again...
How long since you've been out of work?
No, I mean, not really. He would just make me feel bad that, like, he would make me feel bad that Cody's doing all this stuff to, like,
And you're not.
And I'm not. Like, I'm not contributing.
Is it me, or does it sound like we're in the mitigation phase of the penalty phase at this point, where he's talking about his rough childhood with his dad? And I mean, what are you taking away from this?
It's bizarre. Like, I think part of it is he doesn't seem to know how to handle human interaction necessarily as normal people do. And I don't want to call him not normal, but it seems bizarre the way he's talking about his family, the way he's talking about his past. But he's like, no, but you know, we haven't really gotten into it. That was then. I'm not angry about it. He seems very calm.
Yeah.
I really don't know. I don't know what he's thinking. It's strange. Very strange.
It's very strange. And
right? It's not. I just want to make sure it's not just me.
No,
the way I'm reacting to
I think this clip puts the other one in a lot better context now.
Okay.
Because now we understand. He doesn't react to things. He's talking about getting beaten with a 2x4, and he's like talking like he's ordering from Burger King, right? I mean, it's just nothing to him. And then, you know, if that's how you're actually getting beaten with a 2x4, maybe it's not so surprising that that's how he talks about his family, if he did or if he didn't learn that they've been murdered. He has no emotional scale. It's just all even keel throughout.
Well, let me take the flip side of that coin. It also hurts him because now he's put a motive, aside from the hundreds of thousands of dollars spent on the Bulgarian webcam model, of past abuse by his father. And this may have been the one time too many that his father tried to push him around and he went over the edge.
And for his brother too, because didn't he say, oh, they always compare me to, you know, Cody. Cody does all this great stuff and he's just supporting you and not.
So he puts himself at the scene and he puts a motive on the table.
Now, you mentioned money, and again, the prosecution theory here is that, and he admits it in the interrogation, that he spent $200,000 that he sent to this webcam girl in Bulgaria. And where he got the money is, we believe, according to prosecutors, that he stole it from his family, from his mother, father, and brother. And there was some testimony about his brother making pretty good money as well. So this part of the interrogation, they start talking about finances. Take a listen.
Anything left in savings?
Nothing left in savings. I think I had like $300-400. But
brother kind of helping you through?
Yeah. I mean, brother was helping me. My dad was covering the rent that he calls it, which is just like the monthly payment for us to help since we all live at home.
What was that? What was you paying that?
$600 a month. Yeah. And then
it's not a bad deal, is it?
No. And then I mean he was covering like cell phone. We were paying for our own internet.
All right. So money is going to have a lot to do with this case. So prosecutors are going to have to put it all together for this jury, right? They got to put together the obsession, cause this deficit in money, he's stealing, causes friction in the family, and ultimately he gets kicked out of the house. Is that going to be enough here, or do they need the forensics to link him to the gun, to put him in the house, to put him in the kitchen, in the workout room, in the office?
I've seen cases built on less, but the more they have, the better for them. I think they need more than just this motive of he's angry at his parents and they kicked him out of the house and they cut off his source of money for this, webcam model. The more they can link to him in terms of actual forensics, the gunpowder residue, whether there's fingerprints or blood or anything else to actually physically link him to the murder, the better for them.
What if they can't? What if they can't?
I think there's a chance he could walk.
Yeah, because the defense is going to hang their hat on that. They're going to say, well, how did you put him there? You didn't put him there at all. Some random crazy person could have done it. I mean, I don't know, walking in off the street. Yeah, it's not good for them.
Does the defense need an alternate theory, or can they just say they haven't proven it?
Well, I think their argument is it's a circumstantial case with a ton of holes, and they haven't met their burden of proving the case beyond a reasonable doubt.
And not put out some theory about the Bulgarian mob or some loan sharks.
Sure.
Or
no, not at all. I mean, the key here is the gun. I mean, one, if they can rule out a murder-suicide, and I've heard reports that has been ruled out, and two, if they can link the gun forensically to Grant. And if they can't, you have a circumstantial case. But remember, Grant puts himself at the scene and puts himself in a heated argument with one of the people found dead. So, and very quickly, no valuables taken.
Yeah, that's another part of this. There's no, and that was something that came up in the conversation between Jason Amato and Grant when they were talking to each other. All right, coming up, I've got more of the police interrogation, including how Grant Amato talks about the webcam girl that he allegedly spent so much money on.
Girlfriends. I had, like, my high school sweetheart girlfriend for about 5 years. And then ever since then, no, like, official girlfriends, no flings or anything like that.
Dates here and there?
Dates occasionally, but, I mean, not really. Kind of focused on, like, just getting through the life goals that, I wanted to achieve.
Now, 3 life goals to achieve, and I'm wondering if one of them is to, I don't know, have a relationship over the internet with someone from Bulgaria who I can shower with money. Well, those are the allegations in this case, that he spent $200,000 on a webcam girl from Bulgaria, money that he didn't have, money that he allegedly stole from his mother and father and brother, the 3 people who were executed inside his home. Take a listen to the police interrogation as they start to talk about Sylvia from Bulgaria.
When did you meet her?
I met her at the beginning of July. Yeah, at the very beginning of July.
Okay, and still talking to her?
Still, yeah. I mean, more just on like Twitter,
Okay.
like just through direct messaging. Again, cell phone service doesn't work, so it's like I can't use the chatting like that.
How much do you think you spent on this? Because it seems kind of pricey.
Yeah.
90 tokens and $5,000 for how many tokens?
No, it's $600 for 5,000.
For 5,000.
Yeah.
Okay. So how much do you think you spent
on
this?
Probably close to like $200,000, I'd say.
$200,000?
Yeah.
And where'd the money come from?
Money came from me, my brother, and then my dad.
Yes, indeed, $200,000. One other little piece I wanted you to notice from that. He said, I met her, well, didn't really meet her. I mean, he logged on to her in July. Here we are in July. It's only been a year. So in 1 year from the beginning of this relationship, he's now facing the death penalty. How big of a role does she play in this trial?
I'll take it. Well, it depends. I don't know how you'd be able to enforce a subpoena on her.
How about just testimony about her, maybe some of her videos?
You get it in through him. You're able to get in the story of the $200,000 and this girl from Bulgaria, and you just keep going down the rabbit hole with this case because, assuming he committed these crimes, and we don't know for sure, you can't help but feel a little sorry for this guy. I mean, 7 months and he's spending $200,000.
And I know what you're saying. What you are saying is what I've been saying from the beginning. The evidence of her and this alleged obsession is prosecution motive evidence during the guilt phase, and then during the penalty phase, this is the mitigation. This is the reason not to have him executed.
Right. He was just in love with his fantasy and couldn't help himself.
I mean, it's strange how it goes both ways, right? It helps secure the conviction, but then it also helps sort of mitigate the death penalty. And that's going to be a really big factor for the defense team if it gets that far. I don't think they're going to need to worry about trying to get her over here to testify.
What if, though, let me just say, what if she walked into the courtroom?
I mean, what's she going to testify about? And the only thing she could testify about is...
Well, she had hours and hours and hours of conversation with this guy. She could talk about the money. She could talk about whatever they talked about.
But unless he had told her that, he was so, incensed about the fact that they had taken away his ability to keep sending her money and he was going to do something about it. Short of that, he's already said everything. He's already said how much money he had been sending her, the fact that he got it from his brother, from his father.
How about his reaction if she walked into the courtroom?
Actually, that would help. I mean, I don't think she'd be able to get dragged over here. I don't think she'll show up for the trial, but it would help the defense, I think. I mean, at least...
It would be good for the defense.
I do, I think. I mean, he's, as Michael indicated, the cat's out of the bag. He's already testified, or not testified, he's given statements that are memorialized. She would walk in the courtroom, the jury would take one look at her, one look at him, and say, oh, good Lord, I can't help but feel sympathy for this guy, even with 3 capital offenses he's charged with.
I guarantee you that guy would be breaking down if she walked into the courtroom. I completely agree with you.
I mean, it would be a moment like we've never seen. Now, to get someone from overseas, not simple, right? It could be virtually impossible.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to have to try to serve her with a subpoena. I mean, I'm guessing they're...
She'd have to voluntarily do it.
Yeah, well, and not only that, but they're going to have to pay for her flight, track her down, get her over here. It is going to be an ordeal.
How do you find her? I mean, that's the first step.
Well,
I think she's got a website.
Yeah, I think you can find her online pretty easy. Whether or not they're actually going to have any meaningful conversation with her.
I agree.
Would she be an important witness, one way or the other?
I think only as far as if she had told her something and she actually remembered it about how upset he was that his source of funding had been cut off and that he was going to do something about it.
As part of this investigation, should investigators have tried to or perhaps actually tracked her down to get some more information about this? Do you think they needed to go there?
I I don't think so. I think that's a waste of money and time. I think they can focus their resources on other things like the forensics in the case and seeing what else we have here, other motives, you know, tracking down all the financials, maybe not necessarily her. Because like Michael said, what's she going to add? Like if she remembers it, if she understands it, yeah, I don't think so. I don't think it's worth the time and expense. Yeah,
well, I'm trying to do I don't know how many tokens it would cost to get her here, but it'd be thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. I've never quite seen a case like this because it involves the execution of a family for something that's just seemingly ridiculous. There was one other thing that happened, and you mentioned it before, that he admits that his father had kicked him out. Ultimately, that becomes the closest connection, right? Is that he's getting kicked out of the house, and that's what puts him over the top, and that's what ultimately creates the situation where he kills his family.
Right, and the girl is just one part of the larger story. I think it's having a brother that's much more successful than him. He's still living at home with his parents. He admits to the police that his father would beat him when he was a child, or that's what he claimed anyway. And everything, the theme that's being painted is this was one time too many, and the guy just broke.
All right, let's go back to the courthouse. Julie Janae has a look ahead to what we can expect tomorrow.